Good job. We'll get everybody woke up here. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
we'll give everybody a minute, if you can hear us, to pop back on. We're kind of at our break is over time. And as we're getting everybody back, we're gonna pass it, over to Doug for the next segment here. I see some more people coming back in. Hopefully their timers are going off. And reminder too, Hillary in the chat put our map that we were talking about earlier with, the current grantees. So check that out if you haven't. Again, thoughts around site visits is the discussion we had, why that ended up there. So thanks to Hillary for that. And that's a link in the chat for everybody.
Yeah.
Lots of we got lots of no faces out there, but we're gonna go ahead and keep going. You might be there, but maybe you're eating or something.
Do the introduction of this next piece. So one of the things, and it was a little vague, kind of on purpose, but about grantee updates is what's posted on the agenda. And I talked with Digit and Jim about maybe giving kind of an update on just what's going on with some of the programs. They said maybe even a program highlight would be cool. And then on Friday, just this last Friday, headed down south to the big town of Corvallis and had lunch with Armin. And so Armin and I got to visiting and I got to visiting with us and all of a sudden it's like, you know what? What are you doing next week? And I said, we've got little Lois and they're like, we're in, okay. So anyway, but the way it started really is like all good lunch conversations, talking about work and stuff. And we were down, I was down at the youth house with them at CSC. And on Armin's desk, there was a check sheet. It was talking about essential employability skills that they go over with the youth that are in their programs. And his comment was something like, you know, I think they're still relevant. And so we started talking about that and talking about how the board actually has an interest in that, and there's a subcommittee. And so I invited them, and they graciously said, yes, we will come, with like very little notice, which is awesome for everybody. Especially you also, I don't have to like give an update on a program for you, you have to listen to me. But also,
That's what it was all about.
I know, we're on to pay you, actually. You know how this works. But as far as the topic, he's like, you know, well, what do you want us to talk about? And the answer was, what do you want to talk about? You know, the essential employability skills, sure, that's a piece. Training needs, if that's, because that was one of the things we talked about, sure, that's a piece. Overall, what you do at the youth garden, whatever you all would like to share with this group. And so here they are, that I will turn it over. And Alicia has your PowerPoint presentation, and we're gonna see if we can just run the slides.
Cool, yeah, there's just a couple slides, so it's okay.
Yeah, so if you just want to introduce yourselves, I guess, and I'll be quiet, and the floor is yours. Okay.
Sorry, we're debating on what we're gonna do here.
Okay.
We like to freestyle.
You want us to introduce ourselves? Yeah, enough. What do we do? Where do we go? Where's the camera at though? What do I, how do I present myself?
You wanna look in that camera.
How do I do my dog and pony show?
If you stand up there and talk to us, they're gonna see your backside. Just so you know.
What? What's that?
If you stand up there, as you look at us, they're gonna see your backside.
Well, I need to stand because I can't sit. Right? I talk with my hands, things like that. So, good morning, folks. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This afternoon now. So, my name's Armand Shafi. I'm with Community Services Consortium. We do youth programs in 4 counties, Angela, now,
Lynn, Benton, Lincoln, and Polk County.
right? So we run a bunch of different crews. We have a garden crew out of Benton County right now. We have a
Construction pre-apprenticeship crew, and we have a Emerald Ash Borer, crew that we're partnering with the local watershed council for in area.
Okay, Lynn County, we have,
Youth Build and an OCC crew,
Polk is another garden crew.
and we have the Makerspace, which does entrepreneurship and like manufacturing skills.
And then down on the coast, we have garden and
Garden.
natural resource. Right, so I've been working with OIC programs, OICC programs, OCC programs, whatever term we're using for close to 20 years now. Actually, I think this June is my 20th anniversary with Community Services. Right, so I've seen a lot. I've seen the good times, I've seen the bad times, I've seen the mediocre times. I don't know what time we're in right now. Talk about that later. But I've done a lot of crew leading through the days. Angela Turpin.
I've been at CSC for 5 years. I'm a principal youth advisor, so I do case management for all of our clients. So crew members or not, with GED prep, workforce and education training, helping them get connected and navigate resources for employment or post-secondary education, completing their GED, things like that. But I actually used to be a participant of CSU programs back in 2010, so I'm very familiar with the work that we do and the impact that it has on our communities. So, something I'm very proud of. It's funny because Tina, one of our staff who works in Albany, was the case manager when I was a participant, so it's very fun to talk to her about that. CSU does a lot of things, so we're a community action agency, so we have our workforce and education programs, but then we have all of our other programs, so we do a lot of cross referrals for our clients so that we're really supporting them with every need that they might have. Not just, can you show up to work on time, but why can't you show up to work might be all of these other things, so we're able to really support that in a very warm handoff type of way, which is really good.
Right, if you look at the slide that we have up, right, some of the other departments inside CSC is housing. I mean, we do housing assistance for Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln counties. We do energy assistance for Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln counties. Food share, which is Lynn and Benton counties. That's something that my program, the garden program, works pretty closely with. A lot of the produce that I grow in my garden is distributed through food share through a senior program. We visit once a week. We'll visit during the height of summer. We'll visit low-income senior buildings and do a little free farm stand with produce out of my garden and with a neighboring farm that provides produce along with the produce that we provide. So the thing is, with our youth, we provide kind of like wraparound services with them. We can direct them to pantries, get them food if there's a need for food, help them with energy assistance, direct them to housing if they're having housing issues.
So this is kind of just like a little bit of a highlight of 4 people who were on a OCC group with Armand a couple of years ago now, but they're still very much connected with us. We get regular updates from them, which is really awesome to see kind of where they're at. But as we're thinking about like what's new with programs, right? We're seeing a really interesting like demographic of youth that we're working with. We're seeing a lot more youth with disabilities. We're seeing youth who have a lot more like mental health challenges, like anxiety, depression, and those really impact their ability to engage in work, in addition to like other barriers that we've already seen from low income youth over time, right? Experiencing unhoused, complications of not having a consistent place to live, or you're living in a place, but it doesn't have any running water or electricity. You know, how do you make sure that you can take a shower or charge your phone so that you have an alarm to get up in the morning if you have no electricity? So these are 4 boys that were on a crew. So sweet. But I think as we're kind of understanding and like knowing how to approach each client, it's so independent. We might think, oh, we're working and we're serving underserved populations, like we know how to do that. You might know how to do that, but then each individual person is going to be different in some way. So it really is so individual. We talk a lot about how do we have expectations. So Doug, we were talking with Doug about essential employability skills, right? We do have certain expectations for them, but a lot of the conversations we're having, even with our coworkers, is we might be observing a behavior that an employer would say, like, you're done. You haven't showed up to work on time a single time in the first 2 weeks of work. You called out half of the days you were scheduled to come in the first 2 days of work, or first 2 weeks of work, right? You've missed 50% of your time. Like, those are all things that we are kind of figuring out. We're observing this behavior. Hey, this behavior is not going to make you employable. So what's the barrier, right? Because it's not typically that they just don't care. It's like something is going on, whatever that is, for them. And so spending time figuring that out. One of the boys on this crew is the one who, he was living in a motorhome with no running water, no electricity, and he couldn't figure out how to shower, right? He also was in an area where they had poison oak, and then we were like, hey, we got you 2 pairs of work pants. What happened to your other pair? And he's like, I haven't been able to wash it since 2 weeks ago. So, and I'm too embarrassed now to tell you that.
And it takes time to build those relationships
Mm-hmm.
as well, right? That they're not very forthcoming. I can tell you, I mean, the same individual was working on their GED, would come in on Fridays, the day that we didn't have crew, and they would spend most of the day at our facility because A, it wasn't the motorhome, and B, it was just, someplace safe to be, right? So that's part of what we're doing as well for the young people that we're serving.
And we started working with him. We worked with him for over a year. So he started in our garden program with Armand. Well, actually with Vincent at the time, and then he transitioned to this other crew. And when he first came to meet with us, he didn't know how to sign his name on anything. And so I taught him how to do his signature, just like the amount of growth that he has. But also his success looks different because he never got his GED with us. But he moved out into a place where he has running water, right? He got a job, he works full time, he got his driver's license so that he can get a job that he wants, right? I think those are like huge successes for this youth. But if we're thinking about just like numbers of how many people are working on their GED, how many of them got them, like we might count that as not a success. But for him, that really is what he needed. The boy next to him, the second one in from the left, he got his GED. I think he took 30 minutes on every single test on the GED. Probably could have like scored higher if he had spent any time on it. But just like, he's very smart, but just didn't want to be in school. He has a lot of other barriers to employment. Ended up getting involved with the justice system, so he has a long road ahead of him. But he got his GED, which is good, right? We're removing one barrier, but we're encountering other barriers along the way. The other 2 boys actually both got hired to work at Sweet Home Fire Department in their fuels reduction crew. And then the boy who's in the middle on the right, he left, went to work at Bimart for about 8 months, was working full time, didn't like it. So he went back and he's back at Sweet Home. So they're both at Sweet Home. So the boy on the far right, he's been there for 2 seasons now, and he really loves that type of work. But each one of their paths is different. And so how we measure success is different for each of them.
Right, and to circle back what Doug was talking about earlier, in regards to how we measure their employability skills. We do use a rubric on their timesheet. It's not on the slide, but can get you up and you want to look at it. I mean, and it, it measures 5 different characteristics. Four?
Mhm.
4 different characteristics? Oh, yeah, there's 5 different.
Yeah.
5 different levels. But it's really interesting, the feedback we are going to give back to them. They give back to them, and and the feedback you give, right? So a lot of our young people have a lot of difficulty sometimes receiving that feedback.
That's actually something we evaluate them on the rubric.
Right? And, I guess we're trying to get them work ready, right? A lot of them are not work ready. A lot of them need more time than we have with them, getting them work ready, right? The ones that we see recently, right, because there's less and less funds to pay them minimum wage goes up, right? We have work experiences or the hours that we get with them working on a job become shorter, right? We're seeing more youth maybe engaged in different programs over a course of a year or 2 years because they need that additional support to get from point A to point B, wherever point B is. But the funny thing is, like, the boy in the hat on the right, after he got his first job working with Sweet Home, he's come back, he says, Armin, you weren't tough enough with us when we were on. I'm like, what? It's like, you could have been meaner to us because, that's what it's like in the real world. I'm like, if I was meaner to you, would you have stayed on through? Would you have totally ghosted? Would you bailed out? It's like, yeah, I probably would. So, I mean, it's a delicate balance for crew leaders. I think that is something that I have struggled with recently. 10 years ago when I was doing this, different youth, different mindset, right? Now, especially with the young people, we're seeing that more mental health concerns, neurodivergency, things along that line. I have to be very careful in what I say to them, because sometimes they'll take it literally, right? I need to be better at explaining things, because things will get me, if I don't explain things thoroughly, they will do something that that's not gonna get them hurt, but may not be how I want it to go, or maybe, especially with plants, the plant might not survive, or they make a bigger mess as opposed to cleaning things up, things along that line. And these are just some of the struggles that we're seeing in the workplace with some of the people that we're seeing, that we're working with.
We're seeing a lot of youth, well, just from what Armin has told me compared to the youth we're working with now, is we have a lot of youth who need a lot more like individualized instruction on each task that they're doing, which is a challenge when you're working on a crew that maybe has a lot of task switching, right? So for 30 minutes, I'm doing this task, and the first 10 minutes, Armin had to explain how to do that task. But now when that task is over, I have to ask Armin to show me how to do the next thing, right? If we're working in a garden space where every time you harvest a plant, you have to learn how to identify if it's ready to be harvested, what that looks like. What do I do once I've done that? How do I do that? That is really hard. So that also impacts like how many people can we have on a crew at one time? So where the norm was 6 people, no problem, maybe 7. We're really seeing like 4 is a more comfortable number because all Armin is doing the whole day is just going, setting someone up over here and then going over here. And by the time he's gotten to this 4th person, he has to go back around to the other person to say like, where are you at? Let's move on to the next thing, because sometimes what we're seeing too is just they are done, but we're really, the reason we like the rubric is because part of it is on like proactive and reactive communication. So we're spending a lot of time on that because self-advocacy is such a big piece. If you're done with something, waiting until Armin comes to say, hey, what are you doing? That's reactive communication. You're only reacting when I'm communicating to you. How do you proactively say, hey, I'm done with this thing. What should I do next? The next level above that would be, I finished this, I saw this needs done. Is that what I should do? Just checking, great, I'm gonna go do that. So we're kind of trying to really scaffold from the bottom and work our way up with the youth so that they can build that confidence when they get to their employer, because the employer is not gonna really love if you're just kind of hanging around waiting for them to come over, or if you're in a job that needs more independence, where they're not on site or things like that, you're gonna have to figure out how to like anticipate those things and do them yourself, or advocate for what your needs are.
Sure, and it's really tough to capture those things, especially in reporting. To you and to our other grantor's. I don't know how we capture that. Right, and that's offset with the things that we need to get done, right? I see the folks from Youth Build up there, right? I've worked on a youth build program back in the day, right? You need to get, that house needs to be built if you're building a house. That construction project needs to be done, and they expect you to get it done in a time frame. But if you have young people that are having housing issues, so they can't come in, right? You have young people that are having some sort of mental health crisis, and they're not able to come in that day. It sets you back. I mean, just yesterday, I had a crew of one, right? I have to switch everything I need to do. And a lot of things are not gonna get done that I need to get done,
Two people called out.
right? Because folks have called out. Right? I mean, gardening may be a little bit easier. Plants might die, well, or whatever, but I mean, I think of youth build construction, I think of our EAB crew, the Emerald Ash Borer crew, they're putting plants in the ground, right? You have a set time frame. Because you want to get those plants in the ground before the rains stop. Right? And if you don't have folks there to do that, I mean, so that's one of the other things we're fighting, right? And I don't know, and some of our project partners are less than understanding with that sometimes. And I don't know how to navigate that all the time, right? And I think that's part of, one of the things that we're always gonna have trouble with doing this unless we can figure things out. When we're working with other nonprofits like the Watershed Council that we're working in, they're a little bit more understanding, but still, we need to get those plants in the ground. Right, in a timely manner, so they survive. Or have a better chance of surviving.
Then if you want to go to the next slide, it's just like a highlight about town. So I have this photo. I think this was the day that only he showed up for crew and you hung out just the two of you. Maybe there's one other.
Might have been one other person there.
So, as I said, Talon has been working at Sweet Home for 2 years now. He came to us, he had graduated high school and worked at Miller Timber, which is, a local Willamette-based company. They do forestry, but they do wildland fire primarily. So he was hired for that. But if you are new, young, or maybe have you're not the most like employable person, they will hire you, but then you are the last person to get called. So he was on for the whole season, but worked for 2 weeks, which still you can make decent money when you're on a fire. But then the next season rolled around and he didn't get called from them either. And so he was feeling really, really, really frustrated. So it's so great to see that he's able to have this consistent work and work into things in a way that he didn't before. But he was a referral to our program from vocational rehab. So at one point, almost our entire caseload of clients either referred to us from vocational rehab or we referred our clients to vocational rehab for supports from them because they have some form of a disability, whether that's a learning disability. Some of that was we were working with GED students who don't have documentation of a disability, but we're very clearly understanding that they have some sort of learning disability and they need that documentation to get accommodations to be able to pass their test. We were able to get that. That's much more challenging right now with vocational rehab's order of selection and our waiting list. So that partnership, we still have overlap, but it's not quite the same with funding challenges, but a large number of our youth do have disabilities of some sort and need some additional accommodation or support.
Just a couple of fun stories about Callan and his crew. When I do natural resource crews like that, I like to come up with like a team name or something along that line. Our team name for that crew was Tree Team 6. Right? They came up with that, wasn't me. They came up with that, and and I am still in contact with all of them. At least I was the last couple of years. I mean, whatever.
They got a group chat.
There's a group chat we're all on. I want to say like about 4 months ago, they reached out to me. They were all gonna get, tattoos. And they wanted to know if, if I was gonna come and get a tattoo with them. They're gonna get 3 Team 6 tattoos. It never happened, thankfully. But I mean, I guess, it's the moral of the story is that we're not, part of what we're doing, part of what your programs are doing, at least I hope they're doing, is they're building these mentoring
Mhm.
connections with our youth, right?
Well, I just remember right after they got, Talon and Gabriel got hired at Sweet Home. I was away for the weekend, but I had my work phone and we had no service. And as soon as we get service at like 8 AM, they're just like blowing up the group chat with Armin and I. And they're like, hey, they're making me retake this training that I did. I don't understand what's going on. And then we're like, did you send them the certificate? Well, I don't know. About an hour later, oh yeah, I needed to send them the certificate. Okay, great. So part of it too is just like, how do we reason through, okay, this thing happened, now what do we do? Because sometimes we just come in with our really heightened emotions of, I did the thing already. You guys told me that the certificate would be good from your programs, but now and I was like, you have to send it to them. Like you put it on your resume, that's great. You have to give them the proof now. We're like, oh yeah, I don't have to do the training anymore. But I just think that it's such a value to at least have someone in your life that you can text and be like, I thought I did this thing, but like they're saying, I don't have this thing, like what do I do? Because if you don't have that, right, then you're just stuck in how does that leave that interaction? Do I want to engage with this employer now? Because I think the employer's doing something wrong and it turns out, oh, I just didn't do something I needed to do. It's helpful to have someone to bounce those things off of. And some of our youth don't have that. They don't have a parent figure in their life who's had a job or has had a job at that level or has had to have specialized training that they had to prove, right? So they might ask them and their parent doesn't know. So I just think that's such a value to our clients to be able to build that relationship.
And lastly, one of the things we'll talk about is, the thing I love about OYCC, the thing I've loved about OYC, the heck, what WEO has allowed us to do is we've been a WEO funder in the past, we're currently not, WEO. Hopefully we'll get that contract back, is that we've been able to do this crew training, right? Worker training. We've tried single placements. That there's a lot of training involved in training the employer. Doesn't necessarily work. I have been on the other end of that. I grew up in a small family business. We used to get young people to come and work for us as an employer. All we wanted was a body to do the work that we needed to get done. Right? I remember getting a sign-off sheet. I had to sign off. The young person got credit was through the high school. It was ever a true story. This young person got suspended for 10 days. Right? I was like, yes, I get him for 10 days. He can work full time. Until the school district reached out to me and said, like, you cannot have him work. He is suspended. Right? Did I listen? I'm just gonna let that hang out. Whether I did or not. But these crew environments, I think are really good, it's really helpful. They get to talk to their peers in this digital age where they're all on their phones. Drives me nuts. I'll walk in before I do my morning meeting with them. It's like Thanksgiving at my brother's house with all his children. Everybody's on their phone. But we have a crew right now, our Emerald Ash Borer crew. 6 of them? They have bonded so well. They are.
Just talk about Minecraft every day before work.
They
Sit there for like 30 minutes, just like.
They leave the building together. They all go wherever they're going together, right? There's value in that as well, right? They're building relationships in a time where I think some of us are worried about our young people not being able to build relationships. So, there's this employment piece here, which I think is great, right? But there's also that social piece, right? Which I don't think we're measuring at all in any of our grants. But I see more of a social piece, especially since the pandemic, with a lot of our young people is really an important piece, especially those with mental health, neurodivergency, things along that line.
Well, we also talk about how having a network is and having a community informs your employability for a couple of reasons, because it impacts who you know, right? In a job market where it's very hard for young people to get jobs at all, having connections to your community is going to be one of the ways that they do that. And we've seen that we have young people that just don't have any connection to the community in the way that they used to. And so I think for a while, we were talking at least once a week in our morning circle about how to build community. How do you build community? What does that look like? Where do you find community? Because that was the thing. I don't have any community. I don't have anyone who I can rely on, right? When we think about how people can be successful, who's in your network. So we can be in your network, but who else is in your network? We spent a lot of time talking about that and how to have a job versus the job and what that looks like. We had a young person on Armin's crew who was like, but like, how do I find the job? Like, you are 19. So like, you might not find the job for 20 years. They're like, what? Yeah, like you can really like your job, but like also you're not everything about your life is your job. So how do we build in other things? How do we have a job to sustain ourselves? How do we work towards the job? Armin often says, you know, one of his first jobs, and one of our clients said, how many first jobs have you had? He's like, a lot. Right? You're going to have a job that you maybe don't like, or maybe you think you're going to like it, and then it turns out you really don't like it at all. But the fun thing for us is that young person is so concerned about, I need to get the job that I really want, and I need them really just let it, like, you know, kind of let it go a little bit. But I was like, I think this job would be great for you. And they applied, they got the job, and now they've been working there a year, and they got a promotion about 3 months ago. And they're like, you were right, I really like this job. It's like, yeah, sometimes you're just gonna like let it happen. Don't put so much pressure on yourself.
We can go on if you want. I got plenty of stories, but if y'all have questions or,
Well, I kind of wanted to just address the thing Doug said
Oh,
about
okay.
are essential employability skills still relevant? And I would say yes. So the rubric that we use has 4 main categories. The first one is on self-awareness, which encompasses attendance, preparedness for work, like following appropriate like cell phone usage, things like that. Because what we're seeing is that like attendance is a challenge. What we're hearing from employers is that people are not coming to work. People are not prepared when they get to work, right? So that's one of the primary things that we're focusing on is they need to have at least 85% attendance, which most of our crews, they work 4 days a week. I say if you miss 1 day, you're already at 75% attendance.
quick aside on that, I mean, I work out in the garden on the corner of Second and Western downtown Corvallis. Gal was coming by the other day with her partner, and I was just got in a conversation with her, found out she's a manager, one of the managers at the local Safeway around the corner from where I work, and we were talking about employability. And she actually said, I'm like, and I said, so you probably have changed, I don't know how long you've been there, but you probably changed how you manage your people and how you maybe discipline your people if they show up late. Or they, oh, she's like, yeah, I mean, when I first started this, it was really hard. Now I can't do it as much, or else I would have no employees. Okay? It's changing, but people, I mean, but she's like, I still need people to show up. I need them to show up on time.
The second category is around communication. So that's what I was talking about. So we talk a lot about reactive and proactive communication, as I mentioned, but also, are you able to communicate with or without prompting? So prompting would mean I'm helping you like have a conversation about whatever it is. Because if you just don't show up to work and I text you and say, hey, why aren't you here? And then you text me back, then I can have a conversation with you that says, if you're not going to come to work, you need to communicate proactively and tell your employer. And then maybe now the youth is saying 5 minutes before work, I'm not coming in today. And they can say, hey, why did you only let me know 5 minutes beforehand? Because depending on what the work you're doing is, like our construction crew, their attendance has not been great. We had to make shift plans like midday. I'm out with the crew leader. It's like, oh, I don't have some of the materials because we had to shift what the plan was, like right as we were picking everything up and I forgot something. He's like, this is a great reason why you should show up to work because your boss might have a plan for the day based on how many staff are supposed to show up, but if you don't show up and they have to change, they might not be able to get the work done, or they might not have the things they need because they can't do what they're doing. So how do you communicate more in advance, not 5 minutes before, because what's the ripple impact of that? And then coaching around how to do that. That's a lot of what my job is. It's really coaching around, what does it mean? When should you text? What does that look like? When I used to supervise student employees at OSU, we'd always say, text us at 3 a.m. if you're throwing up. I'll check it at this time, right? But if you're throwing up at 3 a.m. and you know you're not going to come in, like, you should text me at 3 a.m., not like go back to sleep and then just like never show up for work. So very relevant to the situation, right? If I know at this time I'm not going to make it for whatever reason, I should just text then, and then try to be awake so that you can make sure that we know, like, we acknowledge that, right? You never want to be in the situation where your employer doesn't know whether or not you're coming in because you haven't communicated. And don't text I may or may not be in at 3 a.m. because by the time I see it at 7:30, I already need to know whether or not you're coming in. So we spend a lot of time talking about that. Then we also talk about entrepreneurial mindsets in the category, but it's really about like quality of work. So do you need to make revisions to your work? How do you take feedback on making the revisions to your work? That's where we're kind of running into a lot of challenges around, will you make the revisions? Do you need prompting to stay on task at work? Again, back to I'm done with the thing I'm doing, and for 20 minutes, I just kind of like hung out over here because I didn't know where Armin was. Right? Did I look for him? No, but I didn't see him in the direct vicinity, right? So how do you, when you need something to do, how do you find something to do? Or how do you at least look busy? Yesterday, everybody's 12 minutes until the end of the day, and I'm talking to the crew leader, and they're supposed to be like backing up. Everybody's just standing like in a line right here, and I'm like, what's up? I'm like, did you sign out? Oh, well, I gotta wait until the end of the workday. And I was like, if you're done working, then you can sign on now. And I was like, or you need to find something to do for 12 more minutes. I'm like, oh. We're like, yeah, this is, you get paid in 15-minute increments. If it's 12 minutes until the end, then you don't get paid for the 3 minutes. So some of those conversations as well. And then the last thing is around teamwork. How do they work as a team? Do they work with each other? Do they not work with each other? How do they resolve conflict with each other? The conflict is a big one. How do they resolve conflict when they have conflict with Armand? How do they resolve conflict when they have conflict with, when they don't want to tell Armand something? We talk about like, that you were. We also have to explain to them that conflict doesn't mean that like you're mad at someone. It could just mean that like you're not understanding what Armand is saying to you, but you don't feel comfortable telling him. That is still conflict, right? You're not clear on what someone is asking you, you're having a conflict with them. It doesn't have to be that you like want to fight them. It can just be that you are not on the same page. And so explaining that as well and how to approach each of those conversations so that we're more comfortable with when things are in larger conflict. But I think they're very, very relevant to the work that we're doing. And those, I think when we talk to employers is how we're selling our program, right? Armin's not necessarily teaching people how to be a farmer because we also know that's not a super lucrative job or a lot of openings in the job market for that. But what we are teaching them is how to be a good employee. How do you communicate early, often, and regularly with your supervisor? How do you make sure that you're able to show up on time, that you're prepared when you come to work? How are you not coming to work right at the start of time and then going to the bathroom for 10 minutes? The very common situation that occurs with their clients also occurs.
I drink a lot of water. I'm thirsty.
So we say, come beforehand so that at this time, this is the expectations.
Right, I mean, but as a crew leader, I'm more concerned about those things than I am about what it is that we need to do. Right, I'm able to do that. I think there's other programs. It doesn't work that way, depending on how far you fall behind.
Mhm.
Right, I think that that's what we should be focusing on. Right, but sometimes that gets lost. I like this template since we've had it, I don't know how many years, 5 years now, 3 years, because it's a constant reminder for me every pay period on what it is that I need to be working on. Right, and some of the things that Angela and I have had troubles with some of our crew leaders is getting them up to speed and training and understanding that. Right, I have a teaching background, I have a business background. A lot of our crew leaders do not have a teaching background, right? do not have a business background, not been manager, so they may not see that. But I mean, I think it's something that's really, really important going forward. And I think it's something that, I don't know. Maybe an organization like yours could help folks with.
And I think when other organizations have a model like we do, where we have a crew leader and then we have support staff, I'm reading the feedback, so then I can have individual meetings with clients to be like, hey, your attendance is where it is, like, how do we support that, right? What's the barrier? And it also facilitates a conversation between Armin and I,
Right.
right?
And because it's tricky, because I come off as the bad person sometimes, right? Because I am the one, and then Angela can come in and say, look, then we can talk, and then I have a better, softer way of just saying, I mean, I know.
Except for when I asked the client why they call out sick every pay period, and then they thought I was mad at them. And then they told Armin, was Angela really mad at me that I called them? Because I was like, hey, you called out once per pay period for the last 3 pay periods.
Yeah, and that was the young person of my first day during of my conflict, I'm not, so just so you know, the expectation is, in order for you to get like a 3 is, I mean, you need to have like
85%.
85%. You miss one day, you're below 85%, you're 75%. Is people call out? I would never call out. I would never call out. One day a week, we was calling out. And then I was like, so I'm like, you're my new story now. It's like, what? You're my new, you're the story about the young person who said, I can't believe people call out, and then you proceed to call out. I feel like all I did was teach you how to call. Great communication. Texted me, hey, early ahead, and got that piece down. I felt like all I did was teach him how to call out sick. He has totally changed. We got him.
Yeah. He hasn't had any attendance issues since then.
Yeah. And he's been communicating well. So it takes time, sometimes some longer than others. But when they get it, man, you feel good.
But I think the challenge on our part is how much leniency do you give in that situation, right? Like, if this person is calling out, we want them to participate in the program, and how do we support them? But then, like, at a certain point, if we just continue to let them call out, it becomes an equity issue with other members of the team. We have pretty clear, like, expectations on attendance from the beginning, and so that is like the softer side of things, where it becomes a challenge of how do we support the youth in progressing, but also hold them accountable to like what the expectations are. Which is why I said, why are you calling out once per, have you gone to the doctor? The answer was no, I'm not gonna go to the doctor. And I was like, you need to come to work. So.
Questions? Thoughts?
Anybody online have questions?
Well, please.
I have a question.
Okay.
You talked about external partners sometimes having maybe an unrealistic expectation or timeline. Do y'all have like MOUs with the partners you work with?
We do. So it's actually a little bit harder to get placements in general because we do ask quite a bit of them, right? We're asking for a mentoring relationship more than just they're showing up to do, like, they're probably not prepared to like just do the work, right? If they could just be fully hired, they wouldn't need to participate in our program for whatever reason. So we're really asking employers to have a bit more of a mentorship relationship and provide a lot of feedback. But what happens sometimes is that we're not hearing the feedback until like months later. And then they're like, oh yeah, so-and-so, called out all the time. And I was like, oh, this would have been really good to know earlier, so I could have had a conversation with them about it so that we could address what the barriers were. So sometimes it's just getting the feedback in a timely manner, even if I'm saying, hey, how are they doing? Are you filling out the essential employabilities, like rubric on all of our timesheets? They'll give them, they're doing great. And then it turns out they're not doing great. But it is more work on their part to do the feedback and the mentoring aspect of it. So sometimes that's where we're finding challenges with external placements.
You have that spelled out in your MOU with them to say like,
Mhm.
these are what we agreed to.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We do. We have a couple of placements that are really, really fantastic.
They tend to be nonprofits.
Or very small businesses, but sometimes folks have trouble with some of the things that we identified as barriers, right? Like if you have a neurodivergent youth who needs to pace regularly and you are not used to working with neurodivergent folks, and then you have a person in that placement who starts pacing, they don't know how to handle that. And so what we were trying to do, most of our funding right now for our crews is through OIC, so we're focusing on crews. But I started putting together a curriculum to do recruitment of businesses, to do mentorship programs, so that we could actually train them on how to provide mentorship and understanding of like scaffolding support for youth. So that's in my back pocket for when we have more funds available to do external placements, but we have a couple that are pretty good.
Yeah, questions or anything online? Folks?
So the last time we chatted a couple years ago, you had talked a little bit about how carefully you have to word funding, how that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's still an ongoing thing. I mean,
Yeah.
the EBA crew, I mean, I think we got really lucky with that partnership.
Yeah, that's a fund that the Watershed Council wrote a
I
grant
was
with
wondering.
ODF.
Right.
And then they are giving us work experience funds, but then all of those clients are enrolled in OIC because it's an OIC related type of fund. We have them in STEP, we have them in our navigator funding or in WIOA so that they're covered by multiple things. That's paying wages, but anything else that they would need has to be covered through another program. So most of our clients are in 2 or 3 funds at any given time so that we can make sure they have full wraparound support for what they might need.
That we have.
Which is a bit of an administrative paperwork nightmare on my part when I have to put it in everywhere, what we're doing with them.
Right, and one of the things I was talking with Doug when we were out at lunch, right, I mean, the nice thing about us being a larger agency and getting some of the larger grants, now we have infrastructure in place that allows us to have this partnership, right? Because we had bought chainsaws earlier from when I was running a crew, right? That, you know, it's no longer running because there's no funding there, but at least we have that infrastructure there, right? We have a couple chainsaws, they're just starting to do diseased trees, taking out some diseased trees, things along that line now that they're done planting those things. Right, so we're able to build on top of some of the things we have, and we still got to maintain all that stuff. Do we have money to maintain it all? Maybe, maybe not. Depends. You know, who we're partnering with or how we're braiding those funds.
We got a question on with Belinda.
Just curious, I might have missed it. However, how many of your youth have driver's license? What is the percentage?
Talk about driver's
Love that
license.
question.
Okay, very few of them have driver's licenses when we start working with them. So we have identified there are 3 primary barriers for employment for youth. One is if you're under 18. One is if you have your GED or high school diploma, and the third is if you have a driver's license, because it just limits not just transportation, but employment jobs that are available to you, right? So at CSC, we have to have a driver's license. We may or may not drive for work, but you still have to have one even for our office staff. So there are other employers out there who want you to have the ability to drive so they can do a driving background check as one of their ways to check you for employment. So we have had funding in the past. STEP has been able to pay for some driver's education. We've been able to partner. We work really closely with Jackson Street Youth Services, and so they got a special grant to do driving lessons for their youth. So we were able to kind of partner, share funding. They were doing driving lessons. If they needed extra, we could sometimes pay for them, and then we would pay for the test, things like that. But the driver's license is still a pretty big barrier for youth, especially if they don't have someone in their life they can practice driving with.
That's the big thing. And a lot of our youth do not have someone that they can practice with, especially our youth associated with Jackson Street, because they're
unhoused, they don't live with a family member, or they live with family members who also can't drive. That's honestly a big one.
right.
We have quite a few young people
And
who no one in their household drives, or they got their license suspended. Lots of ongoing
Right.
barriers there.
The community colleges that have driver's ed programs, you need to have insurance in order to be enrolled in those programs, and our clients do not have insurance. So they can't go there.
And it's very hard for our programs to pay for insurance for them for because they don't have sustainability, right? They don't already have a job. They need the driver's license to get a job. So we can't say that they have sustainability to pay for something like that, even though it could be something if they had a job, we could pay. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Stuff.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for the great questions and, thank you both for being here and sharing. That's been.
Thanks for inviting us.
Appreciate it. I guess while you're still here real quickly, what? And maybe one or at least one, I know there's at least one, maybe two. What do you need from us? I mean, we've got the folks in this room that are running the grants. You've got, the folks, in the room and online that are providing input and helping advise what these programs are gonna look like moving into the future. You know, I think about some of the road trips we used to do in the past. And, you know, we'd always ask the youth that too, what do you need? And usually it was like, we're tired of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We get quite the responses, but, ask you the same question.
Well, we were talking about that when we were eating. I think, it's a delicate balance for us on figuring out how do we support the youth to be successful and how do we meet the deliverables of whatever our funding is. Because again, if our deliverables on funding is that we're getting everybody a GED, but as we saw, 1 out of 2 boys got their GED, but I would still consider that they were both successes. How do we either explain what those successes look like so that we can continue to do that work? Or how do we, you know, how do we make the deliverables match what the requirement is? What are you asking of us too, I guess? Because sometimes when we're thinking about OCC crew and if everybody is calling out regularly, if we finally get them to show up the last month of that OCC crew, but we didn't meet, you know, a certain number of acres treated or didn't get certain things done, are we still considering that a success within funding parameters, right? Or is it we need to do certain things, and so then we need to be looking for youth who are maybe more ready to be in the career field than some of the youth that we have now? And what does that look like? Because then that kind of limits us and possibly limits our clients from participating.
I mean, keep these programs going, specifically the crew programs. I mean, Angela and I went to
We went to NADA, which is the
NADA.
National Association of Workforce Development.
a couple years ago, and we were talking around, nobody does what we do. Nobody does what we do in the state, right? Running OIC. I mean, I remember talking to Doug
21 years ago.
yeah, about it, and I remember we were getting, you were on some national phone call, like we were the only state that actually does this kind of thing. Right? Nothing like that in New Jersey where I grew up. I just think it's a great thing. I think it's an amazing thing. I don't know how we can keep this going forward. Right? I think it's getting tougher and tougher. I think of when we get together, there's the smaller programs out there. I don't know how they do it, because it's tough enough for us big programs. I mean, I think of the MEPR program, which was a big program. I know, you know, Portland Youth Build, and some of the bigger Portlands and some of the big programs in Portland. I don't know how they, I mean, because of their size, are able to keep things going. And I know there's less and less money out there. I don't know what you need to do, who you need to strong arm. Because I really do think there's great values. As someone who's been on both sides, right? My cousin Dave is still in the family business that I grew up in, and every time I go back, I talk to him. He refuses to hire high schoolers. I used to hire high schoolers when I worked for him. We used to hire high schoolers all the time. He refuses to hire high schoolers because they don't know anything. Doesn't mean he didn't use anything. He used another word, right? And I get that. Because the high schoolers that we work with, I mean, there's just so many distractions out there. Right? I mean, I love that our young people are bonding on these crews, right? I mean, a couple years ago, I had these 3 young ladies who would just hang out in our break room after the day was done and just talk. And I, you know, if I wanted to get out early, I'd be like, ladies, I'm leaving here in 10 minutes, you need to pack up your stuff. You don't have to go home, but you need to go. Right? I mean,
Closing down the building.
yes, I mean, I think it's, I just think it's great that they have place. I think the social connection piece is a really big piece that maybe needs to be a little bit more focused on. We had the OHA grant a couple years ago. And some of the surveys and some of the work we were doing there had us doing things that we don't normally do, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of the issues that some of our young people are having as far as their unattachment to community, right?
I think the other challenge, just from like a planning perspective, is that sometimes it takes a while to get the funding. Like, we might know we're getting funding, but like, for example, we were told we were getting a certain grant in July, but we didn't get the contract until October. But then there's an implementation period for us. So, and then we have to spend it out by June. So to deliver like high quality programs, like, you can say we can bill back, but I'm not going to enroll clients if I don't know that I can actually bill it to anywhere. Because then I might just disappoint the client by promising them something I can't deliver on. But sometimes that means that we end up getting rushed where we're not able to like really clearly explain all of the expectations and get buy-in from the youth so that we have the success that we need. Sometimes we're like, well, we need 3 more people for this crew. So where can we find those people from? And then those people are typically the ones that end up falling off because they weren't fully prepared, or we weren't able to vet like their readiness for the experience itself. So I know there's not a lot of control in that because some of that is like how slow things move within the funding stream, but that does have an impact on it.
I mean, it goes with some of our other training programs that we have that we do with other adults, and sometimes we're putting them in some sort of class, whether it be a CDL or something along that line. I say CDL, we've done that in the past. We already get them in because we need to get them in because they need to get that certificate by June 30th.
But they're not ready.
They're not ready. The 3rd day into the program, they don't show up. Now they're done because, it's one of those intensive programs. Right? Did we do something wrong? Sometimes we feel like we did. Right? Whether or not we were able to support them the way we needed, we just didn't have time. We're trying to get that money spent out. Right? That can be a burden.
Okay. If you could include one thing in reporting that you think is significant that we're not currently asking, what would you include? And then also, what would you exclude that is not as important to you as we think it might be?
Well, I think reporting depends on what the narrative is that you're trying to tell. So if you told me what narrative you're trying to tell, I could tell you what I think would be important. I know what data you collect, but I don't know what you do with it because you can do a lot with data. So it kind of depends.
Well, if our goal is to keep programs like this funded, then we would do that by asking the legislature for, well, legislature or our higher ups. So like if the audience is people in positions of power, and you're trying to make the argument to make sure there's money in these programs for you all.
I think it kind of comes back to what we were talking about how can we have participants be in programs for maybe longer so that we can fully see what the benefit is. I don't know exactly what that question looks like, but like, you have a question about if they're continuing on. That could be because we enrolled them right at the end of the one program year and we're going to another program year, but like, if you were able to capture something about like, readiness for the workplace or something like that, right? Like, what could make an impact so that you're able to say, like, I could see that measure also being how many percentage of people complete this program and now are ready to enter the workplace, which could be used in a different way, but like, when Armin first started, he said they used to have a lot more funding. He would run 40-hour-a-week crews and they would be on for 6 to 8 months, right? Now we're seeing like 200 hours, which is basically 10 weeks at 20 hours a week. That's a very different impact. So something around that, I think, but I don't know exactly how you would tease that out.
We could even ask for it qualitatively too.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, legislature, they want numbers, they want something easy to read. Am I wrong?
Probably true, and I would say ROI too, is always on everybody's mind, you know, and I'm spending the, I mean, that's what I heard yesterday, I was telling Summit, I mean, I'm spending this much money and look what I'm getting.
Right, exactly, I mean, I get that as a taxpayer, I get that as a small business owner, right?
Unfortunately, that's what we are.
It comes down to money spent, impact received. How do I, do I wanna read, do I wanna read a 30-page narrative? I don't think anybody does, but I mean, I don't know, I mean, the time I spent with Doug, the time I spent with you folks, when we've had these meetings, right, it's the stories. Right, you guys get it because you hear the stories. Legislature doesn't get it because they don't hear the stories. Right, I don't know if they would get it if they did hear the stories. I don't know, I mean, I'm sure you people are telling the legislature the stories as well. But really what it comes down to is just, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know how to get that point across.
I hear return on investment and I get that, but it's also when we think about equity versus equality, right? If we have people who are coming from so much farther behind, in order to get them to be equal, like that just takes way more work. We're not all starting from the same place. Even if you think on paper, we are starting from the same place, we're not, right? I think about our clients all the time and how in some ways, like their background, my background is very similar to theirs, right? I grew up in a low income family. I was on all kinds of assistance programs. I grew up in a very rural area. But you know what I had? My mom, she made me go everywhere on time. I work with clients who their parents are the reason that they are late by 20 or 30 minutes to meet with me, right? So now we have to overcome this whole other obstacle that on paper, we look very similar, right? Why was I able to believe that they weren't? Well, I had something that they didn't, but that's not always easy to tease out, right?
Right, and I think sometimes, I mean, you can't attach dollar signs to any of that always, but it's like you have this, or you can have, this. And guess what? There's value there. I don't know how to measure that or put dollar signs on it, but there is value there.
Yeah,
And the return on investment thing, sometimes your investment doesn't pay off 10, 12 years down the road. And you don't know where these go. I mean,
right.
right here, here's what happened, right? Went through an OIA program,
OYCC probably. I
No,
think it
yes,
was
was for the
street swap.
OIEI program,
Yeah.
2010. Look where she is right now, has her master's degree. Okay? I would not know this unless she was standing here next to me, right? 2 weeks ago, I had a knock on the front door of my workplace. Past client from, I don't know, 10 years ago, UPS driver. He was working in the area. He knew where I was. He just wanted to come in and say hi and thank you. I could read you the text message, but I'll start tearing up if I do. That he sent, right? Just thanking me for doing everything that I, right? So just last week, another young man just reached out to me on Facebook. He's like, Armin, I think you're gonna, this sounds kind of embarrassing, but I think you're the only one who can help me with these questions. Right? I mean, I don't know how to quantify those things unless you bring us true leaders from the legislature. That have them talk to us and maybe they listen.
Yeah. But I also think, I mean, even if so my background before I was working with college students, right, academic advising. When we think about return on investment in any sort of education, we can say that engineers have the highest return on investment, but when we look 10 years out, sociology majors are on par, right? It just takes longer. It's all about the road that we're taking, but if we're passionate about what we do, that's what the difference is. If that youth really wants to, they can. It's just getting there is the challenge. And I would tell you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if it weren't for people believing in me and supporting me, because I went to college on a full scholarship. Only because someone helped me do that.
We solve the problems, we don't, we can all this, we can all take care of it.
Get out the checkbook.
That's what I thought, that's what I thought.
But I mean, some of it is time, not money as well. right?
Sure.
I mean, that's what I like about the GARD program. I mean, I'm planting seeds, literally and figuratively, right? And I don't know what my payoff is gonna be sometimes. Sometimes I never know what my payoff is gonna be. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's with the most amazing, but I'm like, whoa. Oh, whoa, right on. Sometimes people show up and I'm like, not sure whether I did a good thing or a bad thing with that person. Luckily, it's always been a good thing so far. All right, well,
Thank you.
we took a lot of your time. Thank you for.
You're welcome to stick around if you want. You want to jet?
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
What?
We're only gonna be here
Got
for
an
about
interview
5 more
with Ellen
hours. So.
yesterday.
Right, it's a little thing. See, Angel's excited, but she just got a text message from a client who just got a job interview.
Perfect.
Yay. They applied yesterday, I already got called. Two good things today. Slack has a GED test.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right. My.
All right, okay. I think our next, on the agenda is transitioning to Jeremy for data report.
Yeah. Does he do any kind of introduction? You want to do any kind of introduction?
Well, if you feel like introducing, go for it.
This is Jeremy. Jeremy's joining us this morning or this afternoon now, from Warm Springs this morning. He was also in Salem at the town summit yesterday before going to Warm Springs after the town summit. So I'll do a little introduction. That's cool. So one of the things that we've been talking about, and Armin and Angela, you bring up, how do we tell the stories? How do you get the data? How do you funders know what's going on and what success looks like? It's something that we've been talking about, for years. And, we have a lot of different programs within, our agency. We have programs that we partner with or that we're similar with in other agencies. We all ask for numbers. We ask for different numbers. Sometimes we ask for similar numbers, but they're not the same numbers. And what is it that we're really trying to capture without having, I think, to the point of nobody wants to read a 30-page narrative. How do we get what we need and let it have it be effective? So we're on a journey to try to figure that out. Jeremy's taking the lead for our office to take a look at that. He's also forming new relationships and conversations with some of our partner agencies on what does that look like? Are we all collecting the same data? I got to go on a site visit. I've done, I don't know how many site visits I've done over 20 years, a lot of site visits. But one of the ones I will remember is one that I was invited to. And that was with Jeremy put that together along with our partners over at Youth Development Oregon. And there's a common grantee. And so it's just really kind of cool to go and listen to what the concerns were, specifically around data, and the reporting processes and in my terms, the hoops that we have folks jump through to get us the information that we need. And then what do we actually do with that information once we get it? So these are conversations, and I will say also what came up from that is Paula is now on our board because we were visiting her at the time. So that was kind of a cool connection too that just happened organically while we were there, was to talk about it. But it was really interesting. And one of the things, and I don't want to misspeak, so I'm just going to kind of make up some numbers, but they're going to be really close. But if you were to take like 5 or 6 grant agreements, they're very similar. They might all be funded. They might be rated funding for a program. There might be 5 or 6 different final reports that people have to give us. And 4 or 5 of them might be to the same agency. And they might even be to the same office within the same agency. And it was kind of like what are you folks doing? Do you not talk? Kind of just a real down to earth conversation. So these are the things that we've been continuing to try to figure out. And the first piece is, well, so what are we gathering? And let's do some assessment of what does that look like? The board is fairly new. A year ago, we looked at some data of what we were collecting. Jeremy and Steph and Matt, who's not with us today, have done some work to put together a report of, this is where we are right now. This is what we're gathering. To kind of take a look, to give you all an idea of where we are. We have the data conversations in the data subcommittee going on. We have the essential employability skills, which is going to probably tie right into that data. It'll hit exactly up upon the presentation today. Where do we go? So this is meant to just kind of help us inform where do we go with those discussions. So I think that's probably.
Sure. Good start. Do we have the board report available that we can pull up? And if not, I can join the meeting and share that virtually. Right? Did that go up with the?
It was posted, yeah.
It's posted.
That was the documents. I'll take that L on that one because that was not one I queued them up on. I'm like, hey, have this one ready. So that was my bad, Jeremy.
It's okay. Yeah. Yeah, as they're getting ready to pull that report up, just a little context around the report itself. First, I want to specifically acknowledge Matt Collins for Matt's work on this report. We ran into a couple of obstacles very early on in this development, and one of them being we were in a budget watch at that time, back in February when we were doing this work, and our ability to contract this work out or to use software, the cost was not on the table. And then the other thing that was happening at this time, we were being guided by some state guidance around some accessibility. So anything that's posted needs to meet accessibility guidelines. And so one of the barriers we were navigating is, what does that mean for providing a report that's aesthetically pleasing, but also like digestible? And so Matt stepped up and really looked at how do I do this, and learned this product, and has been doing all the work behind the scenes to put together really what does it mean to share information out to the board as our specific audience. And then so Steph and I had a chance to facilitate this experience and figure out what is it that we can share and how is it that we can best deliver it. Unique challenge for us to kind of figure out what you all want without knowing what you all want. So information is now being available made to you today. And so if we can scroll down into the second page there. Really the board report really focuses in on two highlighting areas. One is, what are we doing collectively as a portfolio across our 3 different grant programs that are state funded. So that's the Oregon Conservation Corps, the Oregon Youth Employment Program, and Oregon Youth Corps. So some of the statistics you see on this page right here are specifically just from those 3 grant programs and highlights what we're doing collectively across the state. 22.3 approximate million going out in grant funds, over 4,000 work experiences provided to youth and young adults across the 3. In over 50% of the zip codes, people were participating in work projects or in individual placements and work experiences. Almost 6,000 certificates earned by individuals, either at credential level or micro credentials. A large majority of them being in their first work experience. Also not surprising considering the age range between 13 and 26. And then you see that the highest level of barriers identified amongst our population, almost 50% of them were experiencing economic hardship. But that doesn't really truly reflect all the different barriers that individuals see in their program experience. And then a high percentage of youth either on track to complete or have completed their program experience. So once youth come in, they're very likely to see their way through and finish their experience in our program. So at a high level, those are some of the highlighted statistics that we just wanted to share out to you. There's more than just that. There's many layers underneath that, but you can't fit it all in one page and one map and make it digestible. So we just thought these would be some of the most immediately relevant and pertinent pieces of information that you might be able to see. If you want to scroll down to the next page, but what I want to also share is we don't just do grant work in our office. We also provide resource support around our programs. And so Hillary, Mike, and Steph, they're doing work to support their program and be in the space with their grantees and the audiences they serve. But we as a group between 2023 and 2025 took on some fairly ambitious tasks to do better and improve what we had been doing to what we could be doing. And some of the things you see up there are Hillary helped coordinate and lead multiple state trainings across the state for providers and crew leaders and folks who are mentors and organizations leading. And then and I think this is more in the realm of Hillary and Mike and Matt, really stepped up to expand our communication and how we share information. So some of you are receiving blasts in base camp. Some of you are attending community of practice conversations with your peers in this, so have wonderful conversations and learn from each other and subject matter experts. And then we're also now more prevalent on social media. So you're seeing some of this stuff being put out there in just really nice positive affirmations around what's happening in youth workforce development. Sometimes from government speak and sometimes down all the way to our program levels, just boasting on what our programs are helping impact and influence. We go after grants just like everyone else. Sometimes they're through partnerships and sometimes they're through applications. So we had seen some influx of funding. Some of them are one-time funded and some of them are sunsetting. But those relationships with our state and federal partners are really pertinent to provide more funding and resources to put right back into the programs we hope to serve and impact in the state. And in the 23-25 biennium, we saw over $1 million come into our programs that wasn't in our budget, but now helps go back out into the programs we're reaching out with. We have a huge identity around connecting with our programs, but being in their space and in their community. So you see how many times we've been out to over 2 years to visit programs, so learn, talk to the youth, talk to our leaders, learn what's happening and utilize that information to try to make informed decisions, not only in our grant making processes, but in some of these larger conversations that are happening around the system. And so we have spent a lot of time and mileage on visiting and being sure that we are hearing and listening to what our programs are doing, and not only from the monitoring aspect, but also from the informing aspect as well. And then the last piece in there that I just wanted to share around this is some new and exciting work with the tribal workforce partnerships, where we have done more government to government relationships with our tribal partners across the state to ask them what they would like to do in this space, rather than to tell and encourage them and plead that they come in and work with us. But no, now it's more, what do you want to do and how do you best want to serve your citizens and your land the best? And so we have grown and expanded in that space. And so these are just a couple of things that we have been doing over that past biennium that we thought would be worth sharing to you all, to show it's not just the grants that we're doing, it's also what else can we do with our capacity and our time and position. And then if you roll to the next slide, this kind of gives you an idea of some of the themes that we're looking at for this biennium and moving forward across our team. These are discussions that we've had internally, very aware of what sustainable programming looks like, and the words that our friends at CSC just shared with us are not lost in these conversations. And we are trying to do the best of what we can with what we have and understand how do we continue to do this and what does that look like moving forward. So those discussions are ongoing and always have a result depending on what decisions ultimately do get made, and being aware of what decisions could look like. Data improvements are certainly something that's near and dear to us. We've learned a lot since these programs have started, but what do we do to make it better? Less barriers and more aligned. And so our relationships within our agency and our team, and I think Shonda is on the phone here today, or on the call, is helping guide some of those decisions and discussions with us of how do we do better immediately, and then what do we do to plan for what comes next. So the shifts are small but gradual, and then figuring out how do we actually make that impact that we want to do when we're ready to make those discussions. And that's where you all can really help with our work in the data subgroup, help making those important decisions and discussions happen. Will definitely help point us in the right direction moving forward. And then obviously, how do we connect a system that's now across multiple agencies with the recent shifts? So how do we make sure our conversations are aligned, coordinated, and implemented as seamless as possible, at least with awareness, but also with opportunities to be curious if Can we do it different or should we do it different? Now those discussions get a little bit broader, but the hope is to keep those aligned. And it's definitely centering back with the Workforce and Talent Development Board, and then our partner agencies across the state who are also doing work in these initiatives. So at a large level, those are some of the areas of conversation that are happening amongst the team. But we also really wanted to highlight, and what is not lost, is the importance of the individual programs themselves. So each of those following pages do come in a little bit more depth. And I'm not going to go into specific depth here because these are not my programs to talk about. These are the program administrators, the grant administrators' places to talk and boast on this. So I'd encourage you as you go through these to look at not only the focus areas, what's happening fiscally to them, but also some of the impact, the quotes and the pictures that really resonate around each of these unique programs. And really what I would just share is if you have questions and you want to dive in and you want to see some data on any of these, we have it. And please feel free to ask because we have it available, but this is just an opportunity for you all to be curious about what is currently happening within our portfolio. And then what is it you want to see happening when we share this out with you next time? Our goal, at least from my perspective, is we report annually, but also biennially, to have something for you at least once a year, but definitely at the biennial mark to show what's happening collectively over that time frame too. So you get to help inform us in that space, and we don't have to try to outguess the room and what that looks like. And this is just an example of what we would do to shape a report for this audience. This doesn't mean it's what we would put out there for general public or for a funder or the legislature, but this is how we kind of help shape what's possible for you all to make the discussions relevant for your time and space in these meetings. So I'll stop there and pause just to give you a high level, but much appreciation to Steph and Matt and then Doug and Rhonda to help put this product out there for you. Definitely wasn't an easy task, but it was something that was very much a learning experience for all of us. And we anticipate the next time we do this, a little bit more seamless, a little bit more prescriptive, and just fun to find the information that you all want to see.
Yeah, I'm sure next time we do this, it'll be a little, I'm hoping better, because the first time you roll these out is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
But it's really good, and I think it's really important to show the impact, and I think this is very readable. I love the data that you did choose, because I think it's just digestible and shows really great impact, and we've got comments. Oh, nice job, Jeremy. Yeah. All good.
Basically with the report too, some of the things that were left out of the report, talk about a lot about the challenges that are out there, because there are a lot of challenges for our programs right now.
That's another report, probably.
It could be its own, and I think those are very important discussions that we do need to have in upcoming meetings of not only, what kind of data are we collecting and what do you want to see and how do we tell our story, but what are our challenges as a state agency, as a grantor, and there are many. A lot of them revolve around adequate funding. And so we'll have to have those conversations down the road too. So those are equally important, but they're not necessarily represented in this report.
And did you say you're looking at this annually or every biennium?
Well, both. I mean, they
Okay.
play off each other well.
Cool.
The hope is to have at the end of a year, an information collection that we can present something again at a future meeting. And then this is the work that we're looking at providing and connecting with Shonda around is now that we have a year, what's changed over the biennium, and is there any differences? Extreme imbalances or gaps or
That we need to be
Yeah.
capturing. Who does this go out to?
right now, this is just for you all.
Looking at the cover page, it was created for this board only.
So it's now a public document because it's been shared here, and it can be tailor-made, but really the first step was to share it. And to try to get any feedback that there is before we ship it out anywhere else. We could do a lot of things with this as far as who we send it to. We could also be spamming people. I mean, we need to be pretty deliberate on where we want to send this document. But yeah, it's for right now, it's just intended for today.
And I can just say this is really valuable for sharing all the work that's happening across the state, and then, of course, ramping up for legislative work, obviously, but, and sharing with people that are grantees and doing the work, as well as others that would like to do the work, because it's a good guide as far as this is the standard, I guess, if you will, or the level of impact that we have or looking to improve on.
Belinda has a question.
Aha. Belinda, we see you.
Hi. Yeah, I was just wondering, Jeremy, in regards to the tribal program, is there set aside for tribes?
At this point, yeah, and it's all voluntary contribution from grant programs to make that happen. There's no established budget within our agency at this point to fund tribes specifically. So it's all voluntary contributions from programs unless they, in their grant making process, have specific set asides. And so, yeah, at this point, there's a couple of different paths that we're exploring for future biennia. And opportunities to improve those conversations in that landscape. But at this point, that's the best way I could answer your question.
Okay, because one of the things that it was very, very, very disappointing. The urban forestry money came into the state of Oregon, 26 million, and 10 million of that was supposed to be set aside for tribes. So that's Scott Altenhoff, who is an amazing gentleman that I greatly respect. However, that got derailed.
Yeah.
And now the state's absorbing some of that funding. So just kind of following the money, if there is going to be set aside for tribes, how do we get that money to the tribes? And just a note, we have a working MOU with the Burns Paiute tribe. And a lot of these smaller tribes just don't have the capacity. And that's what Lomakatsi is helping to build, or team with tribes and partner with tribes so that we can leverage funding to have seed money to start up a program until they get fully immersed in the WIOA. I mean, they could go directly to the feds and get some of that money, or hopefully eventually directly to the state as it comes down. So just that avenue of listening and hearing the needs and everything I heard previously with the presentation. I mean, double, triple that for the need in Indian country and all the barriers and challenges and cultural agility that you need to work with tribes. So I just want to make sure as we're going down that road that it is truly equitable and takes into consideration that all tribes are not the same, and some of them have capacity and some of them don't.
Yeah, thank you so much, Belinda. Those words are not lost on me. I appreciate you saying that.
Any other comments online or questions about the report? Well, I think it's cool. I love it. It's a good document. Do we need to have any guidance on where it goes now, or is that just kind of? It's a public document. Do we need to be thoughtful?
I think, yeah, for right now. And, you know, you bring up legislative session, the numbers probably, if there are conversations around youth workforce development, there's a good possibility the numbers will go there. And, you know, some of the publications that we've done, we have, but we're not the ones that are directly presenting it to the legislature. I think Lori Conservation Corps is a great example of that. They took data that Hillary has gathered and use that to help the conversations to find sustainable funding. So it's not like we just put them and show them necessarily, but we are pretty, I guess, conscious of what we're doing and that we're not spamming. When I first started years ago, we used to put a hard copy in every legislator's box across what we called across the street at the Capitol physically. And I don't know how many of those, they cost a lot of money to have. I don't know how many of them just went in garbage. So we have to make sure that if we do want to approach the legislature with some statistics, that it's the right audience and the right time. Otherwise, it's going to be along with that and perceive. may not get the focus that we need. So more to come, I think, for those discussions for sure.
Well, connect to public first segments too, right? Be another good. Okay. Thanks, Jeremy and all. What do you? Can we take like a 5-minute break, you think? Yeah. Standing up and blood flow. Everybody online, set your timers. 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we'll be at our subcommittee reports and shout outs, so be prepared for that. Okay, timer set.
Yeah, yes, that's the thing, that's what happened.
So, no, but it, you know. Interns not responding. It's nothing else. See how we survive this job. Hey, we're cyber.
Thank you.
See you later.
See you.
Thank you for having us again.
You bet. Okay, we're back. We're still a bit ahead of schedule, but we're on to our subcommittee reports, which, as you know, we've got 4 subcommittees that have been working on, items that we felt were priorities around, the work that we do as a board. So people split on these committees, and we thought it would be good to give an update on how the work is going. And I think Doug's gonna
Yeah,
talk about that.
yeah, and I think.
Because you're on all these, right? You're sitting in on all these meetings.
Yes, so I do attend all of them, and ideally, we should be able to attend all of them in the future too, moving forward, and then that way we've got backup, we've got 2 brains, especially in case mine's soggy that day. And I'm just really notoriously not the best note taker in the world, so. Wanted to just do a quick overview. We had talked about originally what we did to complete kind of a more formal report on each subcommittee. I don't think we're gonna do that today. The subcommittees are at different levels as far as where we've gone, what we've been able to accomplish. So we will report out on it, but it's not gonna be like a formal presentation of, right, next is you and you get 10 minutes and you're in the queue for coming up next. So what I thought I could do is I could just walk through them fairly quickly, and then for each one, if just ask folks that are part of the subcommittee, you know, to pitch in and to talk about the conversations that we had or have had. I'll also say, and Digit and I both have the dates. Maybe this is a good time to announce. I don't remember where I put mine up here.
Got it. The next subcommittee meetings that are coming up, just kind of to give a idea, where we're at on next meetings. We've got data subcommittee coming up on the 13th of July is their next meeting. The essential employability skills next meeting looks like June 9th. The driver's education subcommittee looks like a June 10th meeting date. And the Summit Youth Voice Subcommittee is a July 23rd meeting date. So it's in progress. Meeting dates are in the books. Yeah. We think, and once our next meeting is July 9th, so we probably won't have much of an update, I guess, from today to there. But maybe in October, we'll do another subcommittee update. We'll have some more work that's been done, hopefully.
And probably in October, we can do something that is more formal. There'll been enough time passed where we can take 10, 15 minutes or break into groups, or we'll come up with an activity that's based around that. Maybe I'll just go over them in that order of when they're meeting next, actually. It's fairly easy to do, which would kick off with the data group. So the data group was able to meet once. We had to postpone it once, just to accommodate selfishly myself. I wasn't available for the original time we had it planned. And I want to point out, yes, she's still on. Shonda is still on the call. So Shonda's with the agency's R&D. And she sat down with our subgroup and really talked about and participated in the conversation of what is it that we're doing. And she and Jeremy and I have a meeting coming up May 26th, where we're gonna kind of debrief that internally, what we took away, and then we'll kind of prep for our next meeting that's on July 13th in the afternoon. But really what Shauna's advice to us was, you know, rather than dive right into the data conversation, let's talk about what does success look like. Because if you can define success, we can figure out the data that needs to come to support that. So we walked through I mean, it was a fairly brief activity. The call was an hour. But I thought it was really fruitful of what does success look like. And I think we're gonna take that conversation and try to frame it a little bit better internally with, like I said, Jeremy, Shonda, and I on the 26th. So I thought that was a very good first step. There's the action that came out of that meeting, and I feel like we're headed in the right direction. This will be, again, another long-term project that really probably never has a true end date. It will be flowing as our programs flow back and forth. So I'm not gonna call on anybody, put anybody individually on the spot, but if anybody that participated in that, including staff, would like to say anything while we're on the data subcommittee group, now is the time.
It's on that committee, though. It's the players on that one.
I
Sure we know.
Ready. I got it. Rena, JJ, Brian, Brooke, Jeremy, Shonda. And not everybody was able to attend that meeting. Which I should say was, for the first meetings, was a little more difficult. But once further down the calendar, we got pretty good return rates on folks being able to attend.
Say I was late to that one because I had multiple things going on, and then I didn't really, but what I did appreciate with peers was that activity at the end. I did think was very fruitful. And the other thing that I thought was interesting as well, everybody had a unique perspective, how much similarity and alignment there was across different perspectives, so.
Doug, have you sent that invite out? Because I don't see it on my calendar for July 13th.
Yes, I will. What we might do too is just kill them and resend them, coming from Alicia, because we sent those out from my email, knowing that we were going to have a transition. But that means that I'm the only one that can control those, and so we'll probably look for, I guess, emails coming up where we'll go ahead and cancel those, and there'll be a new one that will come, most likely from OE General, is I'm guessing the account that will come from.
Perfect.
Thanks, Rena. Essential employability skills. We met, that one's a ways back. March 17th, it seems like that was January, honestly. So we did go, Steph participated in that with us, took some great notes as far as kind of where we wanted to go and what we wanted to do. In a nutshell, I will say that it's a pretty big question to answer. What are the essential employability skills? And just like we heard today from Angela and Armin, it could be all over the place. There are different models that are out there. We discussed that. There's one right now that's Oregon Employability Skills. I'm not really sure who owns it, if the Department of Education truly owns it or doesn't truly own it. It's been really championed by the Workforce Readiness Committee of the Workforce and Talent Development Board. It is being worked into, certain programs have picked it up. It's a badging platform. There will be some graduation requirements around essential employability skills in the future. So this is a platform that will fit for some folks, and for some folks, it's just not going to. And so there was conversation around that. Again, it was an hour-long meeting. And it was agreed upon that there are a lot of different models, and a lot of programs have things that are very unique to their programs or to their local community need. So really where we kind of left things was the group wants to make sure that all of our grant programs have some type of essential employability skills embedded into them. Does it need to be the same canned one? No. But do we need to make sure and make that as a requirement? They would strongly suggest, and we kind of do. I don't think we use very strong language sometimes. It depends on the grant program, honestly. There's also a conversation about there was going to be a need to work very closely with the data subcommittee when we talk about the essential employability skills, to talk about how do we gather them? How do we record that? So I think those were the super high level takeaways from that group. Anybody wants to join in and before you have to do, let me flip back. Who's on?
Who's on that committee, Brad?
Well, funny you should ask. And again, not everybody was able to attend this first meeting, but Paula, Jim, Digit, Davey, Rana, and Steph. And Steph, I'm not sure, staff wise, since you are moving over to the employment department, what does that mean? We'll figure that stuff out. Steph's a valuable resource, so we will just see what happens in a month or two. Have a conversation over Diet Pepsi or something.
Absolutely.
Rhonda, I will give you a little bit of credit. You always impressed me in being able to pull out the right notebook, that you use the right ink and everything for certain topics. I followed your lead. I have my advisory board book, and I've got it broken down by my little groups. So thank you, because this way when Digit asks me questions I'm not prepared for, I'm actually prepared. I just had to flip a few pages.
Nice. Life skills, the essential employability.
Just learn a new one. I'm gonna skip one, actually. We'll do the driver's license stuff for last. So a summit, youth voice. We were able to meet just recently, and really kind of what we discussed is, what were folks aware of that were great events to be at, to learn from, what would it be great to learn is, what do our programs think are these great resources, just to start a small database, for lack of a better word, of what's available out there and why. Why is this a great conference? What is this? To just kind of look at it, because we all know the ones that we go to, if they're ones that we put on, boy, they're the best ones in the world. But maybe not everybody knows about them. So that's really where we left at. Hillary had an offer to the group, which was great. And I should also shout out to Hillary, because she was assigned to be on part of this group, and now her duties have changed. And so it's like, you got to take some things off your plate. This was one of the things that she could take off her plate, but she found time to join us anyway, which was awesome, and had the offer of an upcoming community practice meeting. I believe it's tomorrow or next Thursday. It's tomorrow. So I guess I'm working full day tomorrow. I gotta get my brain back around that. You didn't teach me that in my note-taking. The scheduling and calendaring thing is still an issue for me. But anyhow.
Baby steps.
That's right. Offered some time on the agenda, not a lot of time, but to just kind of ask a few different questions and get folks to put stuff. And I haven't really decided, or maybe I'll ping you on some ideas on how we do that. If we have folks put stuff in the chat, it's probably going to be the quickest, because there is a scheduled presenter, and I don't want to take up, too much time away from that. But certainly appreciate the opportunity, because that's a really easy way for us to get a lot of information quickly. So that's kind of where we left that. And we will go back for our next meeting and report out on what that is and see what our next steps are going to be. So like I said, on some of these subcommittees, we're further along, and some of them we're doing just some very basic, groundwork to get grounded. That's it on that one. Unless anybody else wants to just add anything. Want to?
The next meeting for that one is?
July 23rd.
The last one to report out on is the driver's license. This one met early on. You know, in my brain, when we first started talking about this as a board, and this is one of the areas of focus, I thought this is probably the lowest hanging fruit. This is a one and done. We can write a letter to the governor. We can kind of, I mean, that's just where my brain went with it, as far as what would the role of this group be with this conversation? And I was really way off base. This will be an ongoing conversation for sure. And for me, this has been really eye-opening to see just what a need and just what a barrier, the Oregon driver's license, and not only just the license, but the ability to have instruction and the ability to have a vehicle to practice in and the ability to pay for insurance. All these things, I mean, Armin and Angela talked about it just like if they were kind of priming the conversation that we had as a group, which was, you know, I think good affirmation, but it is a huge problem. Belinda, are you, yes, you're still right there. I don't remember, you were at an event and there were 20 or 30 young people and the question was asked, how many have driver's licenses? And only a few people raised their hands. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's pretty staggering. And what we're hearing as we have these discussions is that's not unique. That's certainly not unique, you know, to Southern Oregon. Heard it from Armin today. Lane County has been having a lot of issue around this. The Lane Council of Governments has done a bunch of work. They have a dedicated program. Mount Airy ESD has a dedicated program. So we're gathering more information to figure out, you know, who's out there, what's out there, what could this look like. But it's going to be a pretty large conversation that will be long-term. Linda, so you know, Linda's been talking with Heidi down at Lane County, I guess up at Lane County for Linda. We did connect, thank you for the introduction, and she and I are gonna meet and just talk briefly kind of about the board and who we are and what we do, and probably come to our next upcoming meeting for the subcommittee. So thank you very much for making that connection. And then I with this one, I'll kind of turn it over to Digit and Brian, since you all do have a program that's operating down there. Digit went ahead and put together a one-pager, and it's a true one-pager. It's a front and back, so it's still one page. But it's got some pretty staggering statistics. And some of the statistics that have been presented are eye-opening and just not just in, well, how many have a driver's license, how many don't, who had to turn down a job. When you talk about crashes, wrecks, when you talk about death rates, when you talk about all of these things, and when you link it back to who did or didn't have driver's instruction, or who did, or even I think in some cases didn't have a driver's license. It is staggering. So this is the first kind of big thing the group did, was to Digit put this together with the information that had been shared, and I'll just turn it over to you to talk about it.
Well, I think on this, we thought if we're gonna go somewhere with this idea or initiative, we need to have data to back why it's important and why it has value. What's the value of this to our youth? So we did a lot of research and found multiple documents and looked at different programs even across the United States, and which was kind of surprising. There's advocates across the United States, different groups, and this is just, our goal was to have a one-pager of data that can paint a picture of why this is important. So I think that's what we have created, whether it's for workforce, whether it's for safety. There's data here to support that. And then Brian has a great opportunity because at Mount Airy, they're running a driver's education program right now. So he was able to get some firsthand, just really great information to, I'm not gonna say to support this, but just to add to this document. I mean, anecdotally, and then, you know, qualitatively, I guess. So I think that was good. Plus, we found these organizations that are really sharing in the need for this work, I think. So we were able to come up with a lot of information to just put something together as a starting point, as far as value and need around this particular topic. I don't know if you want.
Yeah, no, so the conversation that I had directly, so our driver's ed coordinator is in our office, so Step Hub part of the ESD. And so out of that, she's right up front, so I hit her up and said, hey, what can you give us for information? He says, how long do you have? Because, and we said, and she gave me the whole, I mean, as much of a gamut as she could run me through the amount of time that we had, but just really highlighting some of the things of, as far as operating a program like that, what does it look like? What does it take? You know, and one of the first things out of the gate is, you know, not to beat a dead horse, but it's just the cost, it's the funding side of it. Right now at the ESD, they're running it for $300 per participant, but the participant has to pay it. Which if you look statewide is the cheapest. Because there's some places that are charging $700, which another one for a note for our subcommittee, I was on Chemeketa's website because they charge $620 unless you are under 18, and then there's the Oregon Department of Transportation discount prices. So I'm wondering if they're getting some funding that way to help support. Regardless, it's still $300. We were talking low income, underserved on all of these. $300 is a big barrier. Regardless, the hard part is $300 doesn't even come close to covering the cost to actually put things on when you consider the vehicle, the insurance, the fuel, mileage surcharge, the coordinator's time, the instructor's time. So we're basically absorbing some of those costs within the ESD to help this thing to operate. Now, haven't talked to our superintendent of business, so I can't say what those are, but I mean, that's just kind of how some of that goes. The other concern that was brought up was a conversation from a unnamed state trooper that just said the program is a joke. As far as the content material that they're teaching is outdated. They're still teaching 10 and 2 is the safest, and you shuffle the wheel, and it's like, okay, so yeah. So first responders and others, they're saying that some of what they're teaching may have been quote unquote data driven 40 years ago, but is not necessarily reminiscent of what they're seeing today. So concerns over that as well. And then for us out in some of those, you know, rural, more remote areas, just how difficult it is to get training. Because the amount of training, we're talking weeks of training to become a driver's ed instructor. So it's a full-time, for a while, a full-time job requirement as far as hours for a part-time or retirement pay based job. And it took a large lift to get a trainer to come out and come and train them. And they did it. It was great. The trainer was awesome, but it took a large lift to get that to happen because otherwise they said, okay, cool, go to Portland, maybe if you're lucky, Pendleton. So that's 4 hours or 7 hours away.
For 6 weeks, I think.
Yeah, for weeks. And it's like, that's not happening. So some of those things on how do we lift some of those. So yeah, just really good conversation, insight. Want to have more with our superintendent because he has a slightly different perspective on things. The schedule was such that we weren't able to talk, but just kind of, hey, what are those everyday frustrations on actually running a program? But how can we, right, collectively, statewide, are there others that need to be involved such that could help on the funding side, could help on the structural side, the organizational side, the material, the content side, you know, the limitations on that. So, but yeah, just looking forward to digging into it more. But I was 100% with you when we had our first in-person meeting of, hey, this is low-hanging, easy fruit, boom, one pager off to the governor, we're done. And now it's like, oh no, this is you start, you know, it's like an onion, you start peeling back all the layers. And there's a lot more layers to it than I anticipated, but it's good. Good work.
And the next steps on this one, I've talked with Julia about this one. The next steps are going to be to set up a meeting with the Oregon Workforce Partnership, representing the local boards and the WTDB, and talk with them. Obviously, you know, the Department of Education is also a good link here. You know, what can we affect as this body? We will see. You know, can we all of a sudden, you know, make a change and go to the legislature and get funding, and all of a sudden we're running driver's ed? No. But what can we do to help especially with awareness, if nothing else. Could be a big thing and a big push. And one of the conversations we had was, making sure that when we do our RFAs, that there is some awareness around this issue. The programs already know it. I'm sure most of them, but also awareness of what our funds can and can't be used for, and what some resources are if we have them, or if we've been able to find them. So where this goes, to be determined, but yeah, more to come for sure.
Sure, and that next meeting is June 10th. Question online.
Belinda,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would just, I've been in the Google Drive and uploading Heidi Shayla's information. She's done a lot of work. If there's a champion in Oregon, it's her. Lane County, is it County of Governments? Is that what it is? Council of Governments. And so, I hope she's gonna meet with Doug here soon. And also, I found an executive order that's new, January 2025. And it is Executive Order 14191. I'll upload that to the Google Drive also for driver's ed. And it looks like it might be a game changer for education. And this is one of the reasons I was thinking about tribes too. Doug, you mentioned that it was the Klamath tribal chairman that asked a group of 20 how many had their license, and only 3 raised their hand. So that was a few years back with the OCC crew. And so that's where we saw the need and have seen the need. Of course, in Indian country, again, having a car and insurance and paying the fees and all that is just a huge barrier and challenge. So this Executive Order 14191 is actually what enabled the Bureau of Indian Education and BIA to pop up a training program at the Idaho Interagency Fire. And it is given parents and youth the ability to choose some educational avenues. So not knowing what Oregon is going to do with that executive order yet, unless somebody in this group knows what they're doing with it, it would be a really good time to get in front of it and get resolutions from tribes and counties and everybody to say, we want driver's ed in Oregon again. And we want funding to be able to do that. It is, I believe, a real priority for our young people. And I was shocked because I had to take driver's ed in school. So I still thought that everybody had to take driver's ed. So this has been a real 90-degree learning curve for me, and one of those things that I just can't believe it. So I'm looking at all avenues now, but I know Heidi has been championing this for a long time, has done a lot of work, and her research is also in the Google Drive now, and I'm going to upload the executive order that possibly could be a game changer if we could get in front of it and set the stage for a good choice for our state and our schools and our counties and our youth.
Thanks, Linda. And Paula's got a comment there in the chat for everybody too. Students that she has spoken to told her that they would drive an hour each way to get to class, but that did not include other details. There are 10 schools that I know of that are in the same situation. Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere for sure. And it's not an easy fix and it's an expensive one, but I feel like there's something can be done. I hope. So more to be determined on that. We also have this on the back page, on the back. We talked about this as a committee and wanted to look specifically at some Indigenous equity issues around this specific issue. And to Belinda's point of the, informal survey that she did, I mean, the data is supporting, what we know. So. Any other thoughts, comments on that or any of the subcommittee work? Cool. Well, we'll look for more, exciting movement from those subcommittees. I'm excited that we have them and, meetings to come and then hopefully in October debrief again and maybe more, input from the group. Move things forward.
Yeah, it needs to have an activity around it. Not sure what that looks like yet.
Yeah,
Figure that out. We got some planning time, which is nice.
okay, well, future board meetings?
Future board meetings, so we are gonna get out of here nice and early, because we can fly through this, but it is important that we get this on folks' calendars. And it's also important that we don't change the dates. And I know that things come up. And, you know, like for this meeting, we did want to make it to where it was back to back with the town summit. Because that made sense, because a lot of folks were going to be in town. A number of folks have had life happen and, you know, weren't able to attend today in person. But when we said them, we want to try to get them on because it is extremely difficult for folks to move these once they get on. So the goal here today is, unless anybody has any large objections, is that we will agree and we'll have some dates that I'm gonna propose out there through 2027 and get those on people's calendars. So that's a year and a half's worth. It really is about 6 months to accommodate people's schedules. Seems to be about what you need to do to get it available for everyone. So our next scheduled meeting, which is on people's calendars, I hope it's on calendars. We'll double check. I'm not sure why that subcommittee meeting is not on yours, but we'll figure that out. It's July 9th. So that has been set. That was set last year. We're going to stick to that unless something drastic happens. That will be a virtual only meeting. Looks like. Belinda, is your hand still up from earlier, or do you have a new?
Sorry.
Nope, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll get it. Just want to double check. So that'll be the next one. That'll be from 1 to 3:30. It'll be a shorter meeting. October. So what we've tried to do is have the meetings fall on Thursdays traditionally at the first part of the month. And so that's what I'm going to suggest that we do moving forward. It seems to have worked for folks well in the past, and we can get those out there. October, however, that Thursday would be like around the 7th or 8th or something like that. There's a lot of conflicts that we see already. One of them might even be because we do have permission to have an in-person meeting. It also happens to be teacher in-service days, and there's a lot of lodging opportunities that are not going to be available because they're booked. The venues aren't available. We're talking about doing it in Central Oregon. And that was I did a rather detailed actually analysis of what it would cost for all of us to go to say 3 different places in the state, looking at where our current membership is, looking at the cost, getting approval from Julia to do it. And she did approve what it would cost to get us to Central Oregon, which is a little more, I think, equitable, especially for you folks out in Eastern Oregon and way down in Southern Oregon. Also, we usually have to drive a long ways on the I-5 corridor, typically not so far for meetings. So this does equal that out a little bit. And we have a lot of programs in Central Oregon, and they've got some great venues. So, but the proposed week is, or the proposed days would be a Thursday, Friday, would be the 15th and 16th of October in Central Oregon, likely Bend. And maybe what I should do too is I'm just going to throw these dates out there for folks. If you want to jot them down, we'll make sure that we capture them to get them back out to you in minutes. And if there's any big glaring thing that we're missing, please let me know in the next week or so. And then we're going to go ahead and get these on, send these out for folks to on their calendars. The next meeting, then we would do 3 virtual meetings again, and then we would have a in-person meeting in 2027. So for the first one would be January 7th, again from 1 to 3:30. Following would be April 8th, 1 to 3:30. Following would be July 15th, 1 to 3:30. And then maybe October 7th and 8th for an in-person. And location to be determined. And is Davey still on? My eyes are so bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I didn't need new glasses terribly. Davey, we'll work with you too. We'll work with our grant administrators that have grant programs over in Central Oregon to kind of put that together and see what that looks like. But when we do these, I would love to have the board member that's in that area, that region, be central in putting that together. I mean, this is a chance to show off home and to see the cool things that are happening and maybe even hopefully highlight some of your own work and what brings you to the board and be able to show that off to folks too. So we will work all that out, but
just a thought on October 7, 8, and 27, that's gonna be similar to October of 26, that particular week. I mean, I don't know if we want to look at the following week again.
sure.
I mean, if you look at when in-service typically is, I know we're getting way out, but, we might want to look at the fall, like 15, 16 again, or something like that, or 14, 15, and 27.
Okay.
For similar reasons that you just explained on this October. Just a thought.
Okay.
And Doug, I'll just put it out there that that time in October and 27, like October 8th is my daughter's birthday. So that's always gonna be my daughter's birthday and then like year-end reporting. So the 8th is a hard time for me.
Okay. What if we were to just say then the 14th and 15th for 2027? Does that work for folks? Okay. And again, these are far enough out if we needed to change like an October 1 in 2027, that's probably not a big deal, but we will try to stick to this schedule as much as we can.
Any other conflicts that people see or thoughts on those dates?
I think we'll have people drive their veil over.
Okay,
Nice weather.
They can enter with you.
good tours. That's it for board meetings. All right, we're scheduled now. So good of the order. Thoughts, things we didn't address, anything anybody has? Which we're dwindling, I know. And I'm not sure who's on the phone. Sorry, we don't have a name. I just don't know who you are, but. Is that California? 415? Okay. Any good of the order here?
I just want to say thank you. You know, it's kind of fun. It's actually not kind of fun. It's really nice to have the board functioning, and it was a big challenge, I think, I felt to get the board up and going, but now to have it be here and to have folks engaging in conversation and wanting to make a change and dedicating time. It's just really, really cool. So just a thank you and safe travels to those that are traveling today, and
I guess
safe summer.
I'll play off of that a bit. Brian and I were in a conversation this morning where they said, well, are you gonna make a difference today at your meeting? And we said, well, we hope so. That's why we're here. We're not on board just to be on board. So, I mean, I do appreciate people wanting to have action and move the needle. So, that's exciting to me. And thanks to Alicia, just made it through her first meeting. Yay. Looking forward to the next one. So thanks again. I'm glad you're here. And I guess we can adjourn. Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Okay, we're adjourning. See everybody in July. Yay. Thanks for sticking around, people.
I need to make a gavel.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
Was it really cheaper for one to one?
Yeah. All right. Bring it back.
Yeah, shut it.
Yeah.